Let me turn the camera to Mr. Castro. Good morning.
All right, 9 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's like, I feel like we've got a couple things in between you guys and your data sets here. So I'm Tony Castro. I lead Accenture's North America Analytics Strategy practice. So what that means is I get the privilege of working with all kinds of companies across this hemisphere on some of their really interesting and challenging problems in developing their data science capabilities and solving some really interesting problems. So I've been in and around this space for about 20 years. When I was in graduate school the first time, I'm on my third, I was really given the fact that my prospects were pretty limited, right? I was studying numerical algorithms in computer science, and what I was told was I was either going to stay in academia, I was going to work in the Department of Defense, or I was going to work on an offshore oil rig and help them figure out how to dampen offshore drills, right? So a lot has changed in 20 years, and prospects are quite different. So I'm going to talk about a few things. As you guys know, today's world, all companies are information companies. This is probably not a surprise to any of you, but for me, over the last 20 years, this has been a pretty dramatic shift, right? Every client I spend time with has more and more people who are in roles that are information-based, right? They process information, they sit in conference rooms, make decisions. This was not the case 10 years ago, this was not the case 20 years ago. That said, this is probably not news for any of you guys, right? This is, you guys probably expect this in where you've been in your lives. And this is, frankly, just the reality we live in. So we flip to the next page. Okay, got it. Thank you. So what's changed? Have anybody heard of the term hippo? You have? Anybody else? So yes, we live in the knowledge era, but we're kind of on the dawn of a new era where people are not necessarily sitting around making conference room decisions and machines are making decisions all the time. So on the left side, we have hippos making decisions, and hippos we sort of anonymously refer to as the highest paid person's opinion. And that's how a lot of decisions were made. To essentially, Skynet on the right. I don't know if you guys know Skynet, but I'll hope that you do, so we'll refer to it again later, where machines are making more and more decisions. So just to kind of give that a little bit of an example, we look at marketing. Marketing, 5-10 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, was primarily a decision-based business, right? People sat in conference rooms, they processed a lot of information, they sat down, they decided what offers to make, they decided what campaigns to pursue, they decided a lot of things in a conference room. Today, most of those decisions are made by machines, and we see real-time offers, we see market basket analysis, we see frequent item sets, and all the things that you guys are studying in your algorithms that are primarily driving marketing organizations. And the marketing organization has shifted from being a product, pushing organization into literally much more of a design experience oriented teams with a set of data scientists and analytics folks actually designing most of how the operations actually run. So this is not, this case is not unique to marketing. We see the same thing in financial services, we see it in almost any industry, right? Where the old way of making decisions and the conference room type decisions are getting replaced with this type of decision making. So there are a lot of ways to think about the companies that are out there. And I was asked to speak a little bit about innovation today, so I wanted to talk about innovation in sort of two categories. And there's a lot of different ways to kind of divide up the world. And I sort of amorously divide them up into two types. One is the companies that are kind of born into data science. Right? These are the Googles of the world, the Amazons, the Shazams, the Netflix that we all know. And then, anonymously everybody else, right? These are the companies that were not born into computer science. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this, and my hope here is in talking to you about what some of this innovation is in these other industries, is to really give you something to think about relative to where you apply your talent and your skills. Right? This is obviously a space that those companies on the left are really attractive. But what I really want to share with you is some of the innovations that we're seeing outside of those companies that are really kind of driving massive change and really kind of inspiring some of the revolutionary things that are happening in the industry. So the first one I want to talk about, and all of these, either myself or my team have gotten the opportunity to touch in some way or be part of in some way. So I know many of you have seen a lot of these already, or have seen lots of innovation, but some of these I thought were interesting and sort of maybe opening up your thoughts and thinking about where you might want to apply yourselves. So the first one I want to talk about is Malaria More. Malaria More is a company that's primarily based here in New York City. And some of you guys know this, but a child dies from malaria every minute, right? So in 20, 30 minutes, I'll be up here. There'll be, on average, about 20 children who will have passed from malaria. Malaria More has partnered with Sproxel and a few other companies, and Accenture has been involved with this as well, and basically solving a few problems. Number one of the big challenges in malaria in Africa is the entire supply chain. Well, one of the bigger problems is counterfeit. So a lot of times what comes out is people send out the drugs for malaria, and they'll get from their local stores a drug that actually isn't authentic and actually continues to risk lives. So what Malaria More did with Sproxel and a few other companies is actually developed a authentication mechanism where pretty much everybody has a cell phone in Africa, despite the massive challenges with communications, and they're able to authenticate their drug through a label. And that actually gives a lot of information through the telecom providers, through the drug companies and everything else, allows them to understand a bit more about the supply chain, about a bit more around the ebb and flow of the disease, and it allows them to really take all this information and start to actually move the needle on solving this big problem in Africa. So as you can imagine, there's enormous public health and there's enormous impact to cost in Africa. Another great example, and again, these are industries that are making an impact, is in health in the United States. So I've had 3 kids in the last 5 years. All of them were massively different experiences. I think my wife was diagnosed in each one of them with advanced maternal age, I think they call it. So apparently that's a condition, but that's what she was diagnosed with. And I had children 2011, 2009, and 2014, right? And just to see the massive shift in the way this has happened, what has happened in terms of the genetic testing and the actual testing that happens with my children, just make it very real for me personally. It wasn't until about 6 months, almost 6 months into our pregnancy, that we would have any idea as to how likely it was that our child would have some really detrimental genetic disorder that they would probably not survive more than a few minutes. And that's for a lot of you guys who haven't experienced this yet, but that's a really long time to sort of sit and wait and figure it out. And then at that point, you would go through a very invasive process to then determine for sure whether that was the case or not. What was interesting for me is in the third child that we had, we got an answer just through a simple blood test from my wife at week 6, where they used genetic algorithms along with data science to tell with almost 5 nines, 99.999% accuracy, whether or not, how likely it was that our child had any of the top 15 genetic disorders. And we knew at week 6. And just to see in the last, 4 or 5 years, right, how dramatic that difference is. And you can think about the impact that makes to the stress levels of being a parent. You can think about the difference that makes to the cost of the healthcare system, right, in terms of how much it, if you think about the amount of testing and the amount of work that goes into even genetic counseling for parents, this is an enormous move forward. So this is another area where we can see some great achievements being made, and this is literally just the tip of the iceberg. Sustainable agriculture. So sustainable agriculture is another area that is continuing to reap benefits from data science capabilities. And again, some of this you guys already know, but we're able to work with some clients who are using drone imagery, satellite imagery, and actual instrumentation on the combines within agriculture to help better understand the patterns of the crops, to be able to better understand the climate changes and how it impacts various types of crop growth, and really using data science to help create sustainable agriculture in our country. Psychology. This is an interesting one for me in that it's applicable both in the public health space, but also in industry. So have any of you guys read a book called The Secret Life of Pronouns? You got one? All right. So it's a great little book written by a professor down in UT Austin, and he spent his whole graduate career and his postdoc and his research career studying language. And what his work is sort of an amalgamation of a lot of folks' work, but ultimately they're able to take the use of function words, right? The words that are not content words, the ofs, the these, the does, the pronouns, the things that you use to kind of connect together your language, to get a much better sense of the psychological state of the writer. And so from this work, they're able to look at the evolution of people recovering for shock. They can see where folks may be inside of depression, whether they're getting out of depression, and see that evolution, and also help identify folks who might be at risk. Right. So this is obviously a tremendous space where sometimes some of the hardest things is identifying folks who are in that space. On the flip side of that, in industry, we're seeing the same methods being applied to something that may be suspect in something like a financial report that comes out from a company, or detecting fraud or detecting other interactions, right? So the same basic principles that are coming out of the Pennington research are being applied in a number of different spaces. So Minority Report. This one's a fun one. We are in the middle of with a few different cities, helping cities actually identify crime. So this is both individuals who are likely to be members of key gang rings and crime rings within certain cities, as well as where these crime incidents are likely to occur, where they occur, when they're about to occur, right? So I know most of you probably seen Minority Report, but to a certain degree, that's a certain type of reality. That is obviously reducing the cost of the police force and obviously making those decisions much more effective and efficient.